Captain James Walker stood on the launch pad, squinting against the morning sun. The alien ship cast a long shadow across the tarmac. It wasn't impressive. The hull was dented in places. The paint had faded to a dull gray. Next to the sleek coalition diplomatic vessels that had delivered it, this ship looked like a toy someone had played with too roughly and then forgotten. "This is what they think of us," James muttered to himself. After decades of humans sending signals into space, the Galactic Coalition had finally answered. They had watched Earth for years, they said. Now they offered membership in their vast alliance of species, and this ship as humanity's first step to the stars. The Coalition called it the Pathfinder. James and his crew had already renamed it the Underdog. It fit better. Captain Walker, a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, approached. Ambassador Xorlak wore what humans had learned was the Coalition formal attire, a simple robe with markings of rank and species. "Are you pleased with your new command?" James forced a smile. "It's quite a ship, Ambassador." "Indeed. A vessel with history. Many Coalition officers began their careers on patrol ships like this one." Xorlak's upper arms made a gesture that the translation software said meant pride or satisfaction. For a species taking its first steps into the galactic community, it is most appropriate. Behind the ambassador, James could see other aliens watching. One in particular, Coalition Admiral Drem, didn't bother hiding his amusement. The Admiral's red scales seemed to brighten as he whispered to his aide, both of them looking at the ship and then at the humans with what could only be described as mockery. "We're grateful for the opportunity," James said, the words tasting bitter. He wasn't a diplomat. He was a pilot chosen for this mission because he had the most experience with experimental aircraft. That, and because he didn't trust easily, a trait NASA and the UN thought might be useful when dealing with aliens bearing gifts. Ambassador Xorlak bowed slightly. "The Coalition believes all species must earn their place among the stars. This vessel will allow you to prove humanity's readiness. Or prove we're not ready," James thought, but kept silent. Later that afternoon, after the Coalition representatives had returned to their gleaming ships, James met with his newly assembled crew in what passed for the Underdog's briefing room. The chairs didn't quite fit human bodies. The lighting was too dim. The air smelled faintly of something like cinnamon and rust. "Welcome aboard what might be the worst ship in the galaxy," James said, looking at the 30 men and women who would join him on this mission. They weren't traditional astronauts. NASA and space agencies worldwide had been asked to find people who solved problems in unusual ways. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, his second in command, had built functioning computers from electronic waste since she was a child. At 16, she created a miniature fusion reactor using parts from old microwaves and car engines. It had only worked for 12 seconds before burning out, but it had worked. Chief Engineer Tom Davis had survived 3 weeks in the Australian outback after a plane crash by building a working vehicle from the wreckage. He'd made water filters from sand and charcoal. He'd rigged solar stills from pieces of the plane's windows. Dr. Rebecca Moore had 3 PhDs and was known for connecting scientific fields in ways no one had considered before. Dr. Alex Bennett had been laughed out of several universities for theories about space travel that other physicists called impossible. The rest of the crew shared similar stories. People who saw possibilities where others saw dead ends. "I've reviewed the technical specs they gave us," Tom said, running a hand through his gray-streaked beard. "This ship is garbage. The engines can barely reach FTL speeds. Life support needs constant monitoring. The weapons wouldn't scare off a mosquito. Don't forget the navigation system that's about as reliable as a compass made of paper clips," Maria added. James nodded. "They've given us a ship designed to fail. The question is, why?" "To prove humans aren't ready," Dr. Moore said quietly. The small woman adjusted her glasses. "I've been studying Coalition cultural records they shared. They're hierarchical. Species advance through proving themselves worthy. We're being tested. And set up to fail," James said. I saw their real ships. This thing is a joke compared to what they have." Tom grinned suddenly. "Then they don't know humans very well, do they?" "What do you mean?" asked James. "Give a human a broken thing and tell them they can't fix it." Tom laughed. "That's like waving a red flag at a bull. We've been making do with less since we figured out how to use fire." A murmur of agreement went through the room. James felt something shift in the air, frustration turning to determination. "I asked each of you to bring personal items for the journey," James said. "What most of you don't know is that I specifically requested people who could smuggle useful tech under the guise of comfort items." Maria pulled out what looked like an old MP3 player, quantum computer, disguised as a vintage music device. "They scanned it, but their tech doesn't recognize ours easily. Too different." Others revealed similar treasures, tools hidden as mementos, advanced materials disguised as art pieces, experimental software loaded onto what looked like old gaming systems. What none of them knew was that even now, they were being watched. On a cloaked coalition vessel in orbit, a team led by xenopropologist Telia monitored everything. They seemed disappointed with the vessel, Telia noted, watching the humans through hidden cameras. Admiral Drem made a dismissive gesture. "Of course they are. It was meant to humble them." "Yet they don't appear humbled," Telia said thoughtfully. "They seem challenged. Their primitive brains don't understand what they're facing," Drem said. "Record everything. This will be a valuable study in failure." Telia wasn't so sure. Unlike her colleagues, she had studied human history extensively. These creatures had survived ice ages with nothing but fur skins and fire. They had crossed oceans on wooden boats. They had reached their moon using computers less powerful than Coalition children's toys. On the ship below, James ended the meeting with words that would soon echo across the galaxy. "They expect us to fail. They've given us the worst ship in their fleet as a test. Let's show them what humans do best, turning trash into treasure. In 6 weeks, we launch. By then, I want this ship to surprise even us." As the crew dispersed, already forming groups to tackle different systems, James stayed behind, staring at the star map on the wall. The Coalition thought they were giving humans a broken toy to play with until they hurt themselves. They were about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. Never underestimate a species that had spent its entire history overcoming limitations. 2 months after leaving Earth, the Underdog drifted through space near a binary star system. The ship hummed with activity as the crew worked around the clock, making improvements wherever possible. They had managed to increase engine efficiency by 15% and stabilize the life support system, but the ship was still far from impressive by Coalition standards. Captain James Walker sat in the command chair, reviewing the latest reports. He looked tired but determined. "Captain," Maria called from her station. "The scanners are picking up unusual solar activity from the binary system ahead." James frowned. "How unusual?" "Massive flare building up. Much bigger than our prediction model suggested." Maria tapped frantically at her console. "The navigation system can't calculate a safe course away from it." "Of course it can't," James muttered. The navigation system had been their biggest headache since launch. "Tom, status on the engines." Chief Engineer Tom Davis's voice came through the comm system. "Running at 80%, Captain. We pushed them hard getting here. They need time to cool down." "Time we don't have," James said, looking at the view screen where 2 stars burned angrily. "Dr. Moore, any ideas?" Rebecca Moore had been studying the Coalition technical manuals obsessively. She looked up from her tablet, eyes wide with sudden realization. "Captain, I think I found something." She rushed to the main console. The Coalition built all these systems to work separately. They follow strict rules about what connects to what. "And that helps us how?" James asked as the ship's warning lights began to flash. "Humans don't follow rules like that," Rebecca said with growing excitement. "Look at this schematic. The atmospheric regulators have power converters that could boost the navigation systems. They were never meant to connect, but physically, They can. Tom's voice cut in. She's right, Captain. The atmospheric system uses quantum positioning to maintain proper air mix throughout the ship. If we reroute that processing power to navigation. Do it, James ordered without hesitation. Maria, help Tom. I want every solution, no matter how crazy it sounds. As the crew scrambled to implement Rebecca's idea, alarm bells rang throughout the ship. The flare was building faster than expected. They had minutes, not hours. On the cloaked observation vessel, Tilia watched with fascination as the humans began dismantling parts of their ship's systems. What are they doing? Admiral Drem demanded, his scales turning a deeper red with agitation. The flare will hit them in 12 minutes. They should be using full power to attempt escape. They appear to be modifying their ship, Tilia said, adjusting her monitoring equipment. They're connecting systems that aren't designed to work together. Impossible, Drem scoffed. Coalition technology is built with specific protocols. Cross-connecting systems would cause catastrophic failures. Tilia wasn't so sure. Their engineer is bypassing the safety protocols entirely. Drem made a sound that translated roughly as smug satisfaction. Then we will witness the end of this experiment sooner than expected. Record everything. Inside the Underdog's engine room, Tom and Maria worked feverishly, connecting cables that were never meant to meet. Sparks flew as they bypassed safety mechanisms. This goes against everything in the manual, Maria said, wiping sweat from her forehead. Tom grinned as he fused two different types of power conduits together. Good thing humans don't read manuals then. On the bridge, Rebecca guided their efforts, reading schematics and suggesting connections nobody had tried before. The Coalition builds everything in isolated modules, she explained to James. They never consider that parts from different systems might work together better than they work alone. 8 minutes to flare impact, the computer announced in its emotionless voice. We need more power for the new navigation pathways, Rebecca said. The weapons system has compatible energy cells. James didn't hesitate. Take them. We need navigation more than weapons right now. As crew members raced through the ship carrying parts from one system to another, something unexpected began to happen. The ship's computer, faced with connections it had never been programmed to expect, began to adapt. Coalition I was designed to learn, and now it was learning something new, human ingenuity. 5 minutes to flare impact. Tom's voice came through with static. Captain, we've got the connections made, but the computer can't integrate the new pathways fast enough. James looked at Rebecca. Options. She bit her lip. We could bypass the main computer and run the calculations manually through our Earth devices. She pointed to the quantum computer Maria had smuggled aboard, disguised as an MP3 player. It's risky, but... Do it, James ordered. Maria plugged her quantum computer into the ship's systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights flickered, and new data began flowing across the main screen. 3 minutes to flare impact. I need a new course now, James shouted. Maria's fingers flew across her console. The quantum computer is mapping possibilities our navigation system never considered. It's finding. Wait. There. A course appeared on the main screen, one that didn't try to outrun the flare, but instead used the gravity of a nearby asteroid field to slingshot the ship around and behind a large moon for protection. That wasn't in any of the Coalition navigation options, Rebecca said in awe. James didn't waste time questioning it. Execute now. The Underdog turned sharply, its engines straining as it followed the new course. The ship rumbled and shook as the edge of the solar flare caught them, but the improvised shields held. 1 minute to full flare impact. The crew held their breath as the ship accelerated toward the asteroid field. By all Coalition flight protocols, what they were attempting was suicide. The navigation system they'd cobbled together calculated a path through the rocks that changed moment by moment, adjusting for the gravitational pull of each object. 30 seconds. The ship wove through the asteroids, missing collisions by meters. As the full force of the flare erupted behind them, they slipped behind the protective bulk of the large moon. The bridge fell silent as the danger passed. Then cheers erupted. "We did it," Maria shouted, hugging the nearest crew member. James allowed himself a small smile. "Status report." Tom's voice came through, filled with satisfaction. "Captain, you won't believe this. The connections we made, they're working better than the original systems. We've got a 30% boost to navigation precision, and the atmospheric regulators are actually running more efficiently now." Rebecca was staring at her tablet in disbelief. This shouldn't be possible according to coalition engineering principles. They'd been using the same designs for thousands of years because they believe they're perfect. "Perfect for them, maybe," James said, looking around at his triumphant crew. "But humans have always been good at making things work in ways they weren't designed to." On the observation vessel, silence reigned. Admiral Drem stared at the monitors showing the Underdog safely behind the moon, its systems not only functioning but apparently improved. "How?" he finally asked. "How did they survive?" Telia watched the readouts with growing excitement. "They improvised." The word didn't translate well into the coalition language. The closest meaning was deviated from established procedure, which was considered a serious error in their culture. "This changes everything," Telia whispered, too quietly for the Admiral to hear. "They don't see technology the way we do. To them, it's not fixed, it's just a starting point." Admiral Drem recovered his composure. "A lucky accident. Nothing more. Continue observation. Their luck will run out eventually." But as he left the monitoring station, Drem felt an unfamiliar sensation, a creeping doubt that perhaps, just perhaps, humans were more dangerous than anyone in the coalition had imagined. 1 month after surviving the solar flare, the Underdog was no longer the same ship. What had started as emergency fixes had turned into a complete reimagining of coalition technology. The once dull gray hull now gleamed with newly fabricated panels. Inside, the corridors hummed with energy as crew members moved purposefully between stations. Captain James Walker stood in what they now called the Innovation Lab, a space that had originally been a storage room. Tables were covered with dismantled coalition tech alongside Earth devices. Holographic projections filled the air, showing schematics and test results. "Report," James said as he entered. The excitement in the room was palpable. Dr. Alex Bennett looked up from his workstation. The theoretical physicist had been ridiculed back on Earth for his impossible ideas. Now those same ideas were proving to be revolutionary. "Captain, we've confirmed it," Alex said, gesturing to a simulation running on the main screen. "The Coalition's approach to faster-than-light travel is incredibly limited. They're still thinking of space as a fixed thing, a road you have to travel along." "And you found a shortcut?" James asked. Alex shook his head. "Not a shortcut. A completely different approach. Instead of traveling along space, we can fold it." Rebecca joined them, her eyes bright with excitement. "The Coalition has been using the same FTL technology for thousands of years. They've refined it, made it more efficient, but the basic principle hasn't changed." "Because they think it's perfect," James said, understanding. "Exactly," Alex continued. "But we found something in their technical database, a reference to an experimental technology they abandoned centuries ago because it didn't fit their engineering philosophy. They called it spatial distortion, but they could never make it stable." "And you think we can?" James asked. Alex and Rebecca exchanged glances. "We already have," Rebecca said, "on a small scale." She led James to a sealed container in the corner of the lab. Inside, a small device pulsed with soft blue light. As they watched, a pen placed on one side of the container disappeared and instantly reappeared on the other side. "We're calling it a spatial compression module," Alex explained. "It doesn't move the object through space. It folds space itself, bringing 2 points together temporarily." James stared at the demonstration, his mind racing with possibilities. Could this work on a larger scale? For the whole ship? That's what we're working on now, Rebecca said. We've been scavenging materials from non-essential systems. Chief Engineer Tom thinks we can have a prototype ready for testing in 2 weeks. James nodded slowly. Do it, but keep this quiet from the Coalition outpost we're scheduled to visit. I have a feeling they wouldn't approve of us improving their technology. On the observation vessel, Telia was becoming increasingly fascinated by human behavior. The data she was collecting contradicted everything the Coalition believed about technological development. They're dismantling systems seemingly at random, she reported to Admiral Drem, who had become a regular visitor to the monitoring station. Engineering teams are working around the clock. Drem watched the feeds with narrowed eyes. They're destroying the ship, just as expected. With respect, Admiral, the ship's performance metrics have improved by 45% since we began observation. That suggests they're not destroying it, but enhancing it. Impossible. Drem dismissed her concerns. Our engineers have perfected these systems over millennia. No primitive species could improve them in mere months. Telia hesitated before speaking again. There's something else. Our sensors are having difficulty tracking their activities in certain parts of the ship. It's as if the space itself is becoming distorted. Sensor malfunction, Drem said confidently. Increase monitoring frequency. I want to document this failure thoroughly. As the Admiral left, Telia turned back to her screens. Something unprecedented was happening on that human ship, and the Coalition's rigid thinking was preventing them from seeing it. Back on the Underdog, Tom Davis stood in engineering, surrounded by his team. They had been working non-stop for days, building what many would consider impossible. The power couplings are holding, one of the engineers reported. Quantum stability at 94%. Tom grinned. Better than we hoped. The Coalition never tried connecting their quantum fluctuation technology with gravitational modulators because their design philosophy kept them separate. Their loss, Maria Rodriguez said as she entered engineering. We've finished the programming. The compression field should be controllable from the bridge. Tom wiped grease from his hands. Time for a test. Maria nodded. Captain's orders. Small jump just to the other side of the nearby moon. If it works. When it works, Tom corrected her with a confident smile. The mood throughout the ship was tense, but excited as the crew prepared for the test. James sat in the command chair, watching as final checks were completed. All stations report ready, Captain, Maria announced. Begin countdown, James ordered. 10 seconds to field activation. As the countdown progressed, the ship's lights dimmed slightly as power was diverted to the new system. The background hum of the engines changed pitch. 3, 2, 1. Activate. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a completely different starfield. The moon that had been in front of them was now behind them. Position confirmed, Maria shouted. We've moved 3,000 kilometers instantaneously. Cheers erupted across the bridge. James allowed the celebration for a moment before raising his hand for quiet. Distance to the nearest Coalition outpost, he asked. At our previous top speed, 3 days away, Maria replied. James smiled. Let's see if we can cut that down substantially. Prepare for a longer jump. Admiral Drem was in the middle of filing a report on the human's expected failure when alarms blared throughout the observation vessel. What is happening? He demanded as he rushed to the monitoring station. Telia stared at her screens in disbelief. They're gone, Admiral. The Underdog has vanished from our sensors. Destroyed? Drem asked, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. No, Telia whispered. They've simply disappeared from this sector entirely. Our long-range sensors have detected them near the Lorani outpost, 3 systems away. Impossible. Drem slammed his fist on the console. No ship can travel that distance instantaneously. Check the sensors again. I've checked 3 times, Telia said, her voice growing stronger with excitement. They didn't use conventional FTL travel. They've created something new, or perhaps rediscovered something we abandoned. As Drem struggled to comprehend what had happened, Telia was already composing a message to the Coalition Science Council. The humans hadn't just improved Coalition technology, they had fundamentally reimagined it. The implications were staggering. A species the Coalition had judged as barely worthy of notice had, in mere months, achieved what Coalition scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. "We must report this immediately," Drem finally said, his scales pale with shock. "The Council must be informed." "Yes," Telia agreed, though for very different reasons. "The Council needs to understand that everything we thought we knew about humans is wrong. They don't see limitations the way we do. Where we see finished products, they see starting points." As their ship changed course to follow the underdog, Telia added one more observation to her report. "Humanity may be the most disruptive force the Coalition has encountered in 10,000 years, not because they are aggressive, but because they make the impossible possible." News of the underdog's impossible jump spread through Coalition space faster than any ship could travel. The Lorani Outpost, a massive space station that served as a regional hub for a dozen species, buzzed with rumors and speculation. Coalition officials tried to control the information, but stories spread from ship to ship, station to station. Captain James Walker and his crew had become celebrities overnight. As they docked at the Lorani Outpost for supplies, crowds gathered to catch glimpses of the humans who had achieved what Coalition scientists claimed was impossible. James stood at the airlock with Maria and Tom, preparing to meet the station's commander. "Remember," James said quietly, "we share nothing about our modifications. As far as they know, we got lucky with some minor improvements to their systems." "Do you think they'll believe that?" Maria asked, straightening her uniform. "No," James said with a small smile. "But let them wonder." The airlock opened to reveal Commander Zell, a tall, thin alien with pale green skin and large, multifaceted eyes. Behind Zell stood a delegation of Coalition officials, their formal robes marked with various ranks and affiliations. "Captain Walker," Commander Zell said, the translator converting the clicks and whistles into English. "The Lorani Outpost welcomes you and your crew. Your arrival has caused quite a stir." "Thank you for your hospitality, Commander," James replied. "We're grateful for the opportunity to resupply." Of course," Zell said, gesturing for them to follow. "The Coalition is most interested in your journey so far. We've received reports of unusual travel methods." James kept his face neutral. "We've made some adjustments to improve efficiency." "Adjustments," repeated one of the officials, a short, stocky alien with what looked like gills along its neck. "Is that what you call completely rewriting the laws of physics?" "We haven't rewritten anything," Tom said with a shrug. "We just found a different way to read them." The officials exchanged glances, clearly unsettled by the humans' casual attitude toward what they considered revolutionary technology. As they walked through the station, James noticed how other aliens moved aside, watching the humans with mixtures of curiosity, awe, and in some cases, clear fear. Word had spread, and the implications were sinking in. In the highest levels of the Coalition capital world, an emergency council session had been called. The Grand Chamber, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of species, was sealed for this private meeting. Only the highest-ranking officials were present. High Chancellor Vorex, the elected leader of the Coalition for the past 30 years, looked around the table at the troubled faces. "I assume you've all reviewed the reports regarding the human vessel," Vorex said. His species communicated with subtle color changes in their skin along with speech, and right now, the patches on his face showed deep concern. "It cannot be allowed to continue," said Councillor Traz, head of security. "This human ship has developed technology that could destabilize the entire Coalition. If all species suddenly began developing their own variations of established technology." "Chaos," agreed another counselor. The foundations of our society rest on technological stability and predictability. What do you suggest? Asked Vorex. We invited them to join the coalition. We gave them a ship. A test ship, Traz corrected. One they were supposed to struggle with, not revolutionize. I recommend immediate revocation of Earth's provisional membership and confiscation of the vessel before they can develop further innovations. And if they resist? Asked a quieter voice. All heads turned to Counselor Mira, known for her moderate views. These humans have already demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Attempting to force them could backfire significantly. They are one ship against the might of the coalition fleet, Traz said dismissively. They would have no choice but to comply. The debate continued, with opinions splitting into three main factions. Some, like Traz, wanted immediate action to contain the human threat. Others saw opportunity. If humans could be controlled, their creativity might be harnessed for coalition benefit. A small minority, including Mira, suggested treating humans as true equals and learning from them rather than trying to control them. In the midst of this debate, a new voice spoke up. Telia had been granted rare permission to address the council directly. With respect, honored counselors, she began, I have been observing the humans closely. Attempting to control them through force would be a grave error. You sympathize with them, Traz accused. I understand them, Telia corrected, which is not the same thing. Humans have a unique perspective that allows them to see possibilities where we see only established patterns. It is not a threat unless we make it one. Pretty words, Traz said. But the reality is clear. Either we control this new technology, or it will spread beyond our ability to manage. After hours of debate, a decision was reached. A coalition diplomatic vessel would approach the underdog with orders to return to coalition space for safety inspections. If the humans refused, stronger measures would be authorized. Back at the Lorani outpost, James received a secure communication from Earth. The coalition had allowed limited contact with their home planet, carefully monitoring all transmissions. This one, however, had been approved quickly, too quickly. Captain, the message began, the face of UN Secretary-General Williams appearing on the screen. We've received troubling intelligence from sources within the coalition. There is significant concern about your ship's advancements. A diplomatic vessel has been dispatched to intercept you, but our sources suggest their intentions may not be entirely peaceful. James frowned. What are your orders, sir? The Security Council has discussed this at length. Your primary mission remains unchanged. Explore and learn. But your safety takes precedence over diplomacy. Do what you must to protect your crew and your ship. Earth stands with you. The transmission ended, leaving James troubled. He called his senior officers to the ship's conference room. They're scared of us, Rebecca said after James shared the message. We've advanced too quickly, broken too many of their rules. What are our options? James asked, looking around the table. Maria leaned forward. We could run. With our new drive, we could stay ahead of anything they send after us. Running makes us look guilty, Tom pointed out. And we've done nothing wrong. Alex had been quiet, but now he spoke. There's another option. We share what we've learned. What do you mean? James asked. Not with the coalition officials, Alex clarified. With Earth. We send all our specifications, all our discoveries, directly home. If they want to stop human advancement, they'll have to deal with an entire planet of innovators, not just one ship. James considered this, then nodded slowly. Begin the transmission immediately. Use our new communications array, the one that operates on frequencies they can't easily monitor. If they're planning to take our ship, we make sure our knowledge doesn't die with us. As the crew rushed to compile their discoveries, James stared out the viewport at the stars. The coalition had given humans their weakest ship as a test, expecting them to fail. Instead, humans had shown what they did best: adapt, innovate, and overcome. Now the real test was beginning. The coalition diplomatic vessel Righteous Purpose dropped out of FTL travel near the Lorani outpost. It wasn't alone. Behind it came 29 warships, their weapons systems fully charged. The message was clear. This wasn't a negotiation, but a show of force. Inside the Underdog, alarms blared as sensors detected the incoming fleet. Transmission from the lead ship, Captain Maria reported from her station. They're ordering us to power down all systems and prepare for boarding. They claim it's for safety inspections. James looked around the bridge at his crew. In the months since leaving Earth, they had grown from a collection of misfits into a family. They had taken the worst ship in the coalition fleet and transformed it into something revolutionary. "Status of our transmission to Earth?" he asked. "Completed 10 minutes ago," Maria replied with a satisfied smile. "Everything we've learned, every innovation, every discovery, it's all safely home." James nodded. "Open a channel to the coalition fleet." The main screen flickered to life, showing the stern face of Admiral Drem. The red-scaled alien's expression showed no surprise at seeing James. "Captain Walker," Drem said, his translator converting his clicks and hisses into English. "By order of the Coalition Council, your vessel is to power down immediately and prepare for boarding. Your modifications must be inspected for safety compliance." "Admiral Drem," James replied calmly, "we appreciate your concern for our safety, but the Underdog has never been safer. In fact, we've improved virtually every system beyond Coalition standards." Drem's scales darkened with anger. "That is precisely the problem. Human, your reckless modifications violate established protocols. You will comply, or we will be forced to take more direct action." From her position beside James, Rebecca whispered, "They're scared of what we've become." James nodded slightly. "Admiral, humanity joined the coalition in good faith. We were given this ship as a test, and we've passed it beyond anyone's expectations. We've harmed no one. We've violated no laws. We've simply innovated. Innovation without oversight threatens the stability of the coalition," Drem replied. "You have 5 minutes to comply before we take action." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in silence. "Options?" James asked his crew. "We could run," Tom suggested from engineering. "Our new drive could outpace anything they have. Until they catch us eventually," Maria countered. "We're still one ship." Alex spoke up from the science station. "Captain, remember what we were working on last week? The probability drive." James turned to him. "It's not tested yet." "Neither was the spatial compression module when we first used it," Alex said with growing excitement. "The theory is sound. The initial simulations were promising." "Explain it again," James requested. "In simple terms." Alex nodded. "Traditional weapons target where something is. Our probability drive can calculate where something is most likely to be and nudge reality slightly to ensure we're somewhere else." "You're talking about manipulating probability itself," Rebecca said, "making it extremely unlikely that their weapons will hit us, and extremely likely that ours will hit them, if needed." Alex confirmed. "It doesn't break physics. It just bends the rules a bit." James considered this for a long moment. "How long to bring it online?" 10 minutes, Tom replied from engineering. "Maybe less if we bypass the secondary safety protocols." "We don't have 10 minutes, Maria pointed out. "We have 4 minutes until they open fire." James made his decision. "Do it. Bypass everything non-essential. All power to the probability drive and shields." The next 4 minutes were a flurry of activity as the crew raced to bring the untested system online. Energy flowed through pathways that had never existed in coalition technology, creating quantum fields that manipulated the very fabric of probability. Just as the deadline expired, Tom's voice came through the comm system. "Probability drive online, Captain. It's not stable, but it's working." On the main screen, they could see the coalition fleet moving into attack formation. The first energy blasts lanced out from the nearest warships. "Brace for impact," James called. But the impacts never came. Each energy blast seemed to veer off course at the last moment, missing the underdog by mere meters. The humans watched in awe as shot after shot failed to connect. "It's working," Alex whispered. "The probability fields are shifting things just enough." James didn't waste the opportunity. "Maria, open a channel to all coalition vessels simultaneously." "That's not possible with Standard," she began, then smiled. "Right. Standard doesn't apply to us anymore. Channel open to all vessels, Captain." On the bridge of the Righteous Purpose, Admiral Drem stared in disbelief as every single shot from his fleet somehow missed the human vessel. It wasn't evasive maneuvers. The ship barely moved, yet nothing could touch it. "Impossible," he muttered. Then, to his further shock, Captain Walker's face appeared on his screen, and from the reactions of his officers, on every screen throughout the fleet. "This is Captain James Walker of the Earth ship the Underdog," the human began. "We could continue this demonstration, but that would miss the point. You gave us your weakest ship as a test, expecting us to fail. Instead, we've shown you possibilities your civilization has overlooked for millennia." Drem tried to cut the transmission, but nothing happened. Somehow, the humans had overridden all communications controls. "Humanity doesn't want conflict," Walker continued. "We want partnership, but it must be as equals. We shared all our innovations with Earth. What you're witnessing isn't just one ship. It's humanity's gift to the stars. You can fight us and lose, or join us and grow. The choice is yours." The standoff lasted 12 tense hours. During that time, the Coalition Council held emergency sessions, reviewing reports from the fleet and data from Telia's observation mission. The evidence was undeniable. Humans had advanced specific technologies beyond what the Coalition had achieved in thousands of years of development. Finally, High Chancellor Vorex himself contacted the Underdog. "Captain Walker," the ancient alien said, his skin shifting through patterns that indicated deep thought. "The Coalition has existed for 50,000 years. In that time, we have encountered many species, but none quite like humans." James waited, saying nothing. "Your methods are unorthodox. Your thinking is unpredictable. These qualities frightened us. But perhaps Vorex's skin rippled with colors that translated as thoughtful consideration. Perhaps fear of the unknown is our limitation, not yours." "What are you suggesting, Chancellor?" James asked. "A new kind of partnership. Not humans submitting to coalition standards, but a true exchange of ideas. Your innovations combined with our stability, your creativity with our experience." James smiled. "That's all we ever wanted." In the months that followed, the Underdog became a symbol of a new era in galactic politics. Human innovation spread throughout coalition space, not as a conquering force, but as a revitalizing one. Species that had accepted technological stagnation as inevitable began to question their own limitations. Telia, now serving as the first Coalition Minister of Interspecies Innovation, summarized it best in her address to the new council. "By giving humans our weakest ship, we accidentally gave them the perfect opportunity to show us our own blind spots. They didn't just rewrite the capabilities of a single vessel, they've rewritten what we thought was possible. And in doing so, they've written themselves into the future of the Coalition in ways none of us could have predicted." Captain Walker and his crew became diplomats as much as explorers, building bridges between human ingenuity and alien wisdom. The Underdog, now barely recognizable from its original form, became a living symbol of what was possible when creativity was unleashed. The universe, it turned out, had far fewer fixed rules than anyone had imagined. All it took was a species willing to test them.